yeah, but is he really dead? The one trope that I think needs to be used very, very sparingly, probably because it is extremely powerful, is the resurrection trope. Now, I love the resurrection trope, and there was a time, like, at the time that C.S. Lewis published the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where Aslan comes back to life, and it's this incredible, just explosive moment of the bad guys think that they can kill the good guy and he will stay dead. But he is so good that death reverses, works backwards, and brings him back to life. Death itself is literally powerless to hold somebody of such purity. For those of you who come from a Christian background, you recognize this as a very Christ-like pattern, that Christ could not be held by the grave. It had no power over him. He had to rise from the dead because the purity of his divinity and his sinlessness demanded it. In God's law, death is the natural consequence to sin. Since Jesus had no sin, he could only die because he took everybody else's sins upon himself, and then when he rose again, it was a declaration that he, in essence, had been sinless and those sins were not his own, and he is therefore reversed the power of sin and death. There's a lot more to that. Obviously, I don't want to be trite with my treatment of the Christian doctrine, but hopefully that's an adequate explanation for the purpose of this discussion. Now, what I have seen happen over and over by authors who are both from a Christian worldview and not from a Christian worldview is that they overuse this resurrection trope to the point where it's like, yeah, but is he really dead? Like, we didn't actually see him die, so are we sure he's actually dead? You know, on the one hand, you have those cases of, like, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle trying desperately to kill off Sherlock Holmes, and his readers would not have any of it. They forced him to bring Sherlock Holmes back to life and write more adventures. But then on the other hand, you have various other entities, some of them, you know, franchises that have been going on and on forever, where people are just so tired of watching the supposedly dead character just pop right back to life, like, oh yeah, no problem, here's the supernatural explanation for how I survived that completely impossible, unlikely event. And something that I as an author definitely pay attention to is, if I have to kill off a character, 99% of the time they should absolutely stay dead. It shouldn't be this little, like, magic trick of, oh, well, you didn't actually see them die, and look, they pop right back up later on in the story. Unfortunately, at this point, the readers have become so cynical about the resurrection trope that when a character actually dies and actually stays dead in the series, the emotional impact of their death is totally lost because the reader half expects that character to come back to life. And when the character doesn't, you've kind of missed the opportunity for the reader to feel the impact and the full weight of that permanent event. Which for me as an author is super frustrating because there are times when I will kill off a character and doggone it, you better cry with me. It is very, very seldom that I will resurrect a character. So, in conclusion, do you agree with my evaluation of these tropes? Do you have any more tropes to add that are your favorites or that you think really should be used sparingly? Let me know in the comments below.